got about 2 minutes yet.
Yeah, I was just making sure it was working.
Good evening. I'm Phil Haslanger.
And I'm Michael Bryant.
And we are so happy to have you with us here this evening. Some of you here, some are joining us online, and this will live on YouTube beyond this night. So you can come back and see it again if you like, or tell your friends. We'll be asking you at various points to join Michael in singing some of the songs in the program, and your voices matter, so please join in as best you can. The program will last a little over an hour. We want to give thanks to Christ Presbyterian for hosting us here. Thanks to Ben McKnight for running the technology to make this all happen. We understand in the rush and the fuss that happens on a weekend, and you're trying to get here on time, find a place to park, get a good seat. Right, just to settle in for a moment, bring yourselves from getting here to being here, and then let's just have a moment of silence as you take a breath.
The 13th century Persian poet and Sufi mystic, Rumi, has long transcended national borders, ethnic divides, and spiritual divides. I set one of his poems to music, and we'll use that tonight as a means that no matter what tradition you come from or what experiences you've had, that we may meet together. It's a very simple song. I'll sing it twice. If you feel inclined, join me on the second time around. I think as Joni Mitchell has said, the more voices and the more out-of-tune voices, the better. Out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. Out beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there. I'll meet you there.
I grew up in a small city in northeast Wisconsin called Marinette. It was along the south shore of the Menominee River, just where it emptied into Green Bay. So keep that location in mind for a moment. I grew up with the creation story that comes out of the Hebrew Bible, and that's also common to the Christian tradition. Islam tells the creation story just a bit differently, but it's fairly similar to the story that I grew up with. Over time, I came to understand the idea that God created the universe in 6 days and created humanity in the image and likeness of God as not a literal historical thing, but it still framed my understanding of the origins of the world and of us. And it was good. And then I learned another creation story. It was a story set not in a beautiful garden by the Tigris and Euphrates rivers that run from Syria into Iraq, but at the mouth of the Menominee River, just literally down the street from where I grew up. In the Menominee tribal tradition, when the Great Spirit first made the earth, he also created a large number of spirits, and one of the good spirits took a bear to the mouth of the Menominee, and as the bear swam up the river, it changed its form into what became the first human, who then called other animals and fish and birds into human form, and they became the clans of the Menominee tribe. My understanding of how different spiritual traditions form the story of creation widened. It has to my understanding that many of us share some common themes in our stories and in our understanding of the divine. Today, we're gathered on land originally inhabited by the Ho-Chunk tribe. In their story of creation, the divine is called Earthmaker. And while the details differ, there's still the creation of water and light and vegetation and people. Earthmaker said, "As things are just as I wish them, I will make a being in my own likeness." So he took a piece of clay and made it like himself and then breathed into its mouth. Sound familiar?
So that sense of the natural world that we share, no matter which creation story you choose, is a good starting place for us tonight. And this song sort of takes us into that natural world around us. Praise the Lord of all creation, Spirit of unending love. Praise the gift of life she brings us, love and life combined as one. When you see the snow-capped mountain reaching for the rising sun, you can feel the mighty power, love and life combined as one. In the kindness of a stranger, reaching out a helping hand, you can feel the love that's there in every woman, child, and man. When you see the flowing wheat field shining golden in the sun, you can feel the love all around us, bringing love to you and I. From the love of the Great Spirit came the first strong spark of life, flowing through the land and ocean, bringing forth all forms of life. We must all respect this power, 1,000 ways to kneel and pray. We must all believe it truly, that love and life will find a way. In the eyes of friends and family, in the hearts of all we know, burns the fire of their desiring to let life live and let love grow. When you see the evening sunset blazing glory in the sky, you can feel love all around us, bringing life to you and I. Bless this hour that we're together, praising love in word and song. Raise a prayer to life and love and life combined.
program grows out of the work over the last 15 years or so of Reverend Betty Stookey and her spouse, folk singer Noel Paul Stookey. Betty had studied theology and was concerned about how often religion was used to fuel violence, a fuel poured on top of disputes over land and money and power. The same has been true about how race and ethnicity and gender have all been used to fuel violence. We know that none of our faith traditions are perfect in this regard. Each tradition has people out at the edges who decide that violence is either a way to force others to submit to their beliefs or that religion is a useful tool in oppressing and exploiting others. Those of us in the Christian faith tradition know there are also sharp divides among us about what it means to follow Jesus. Still, there is a common theme across faith traditions, as well as humanist traditions, that is an antidote to that fuel of hatred. That theme is the power of love. For Christians, there's a line in the New Testament from the first letter that John wrote to one of the very early Christian communities that speaks to this. Whoever does not love does not know God, for God is love. John went on, if we love one another, God lives in us. Tonight we'll explore how different traditions may understand the divine in different ways, and yet we're going to focus on the commonality that many share. We do not deny that there are differences among all these traditions, sometimes differences that are deeply rooted in our understanding of the world. Our goal is not to paper over the differences, but to celebrate a place where we can all find some shared meaning. We hope that what you hear this evening might inspire you to learn a little bit more about a faith tradition different than your own, and to deepen your understanding of what you believe and how you live it out. Wherever you are in that vast expanse of beliefs, we hope you will approach this evening with a sense of cultural humility, of not thinking that any one of us has all the answers. As Presbyterian preacher Anna Carter Florence said in a sermon, maybe we know God best when we have to listen to a person different than ourselves. So we come back to that core value in many belief systems, love. That's what can bind us together. Noel and Betty wrote a song about that.
And this one, that is Noel, who wrote the song, definitely wants us to all sing along on this one. It's very easy. I'll teach it to you. We'll do it slow first, and then we'll get into it. One flame, many candles. Try that.
One flame, many candles.
One sky, many stars.
One sky, many stars.
One sea, many rivers.
One sea, many rivers.
One love. So many hearts. One love.
So many hearts. One sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love, so many hearts.
Yeah. We live in the same house on different floors. I've got my window, and you got yours. So we each have a doorway that leads to the hall, but the rooms are so cozy and the door is so small.
One flame, many candles, one
sky,
sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love,
so many hearts. So mostly we sit by our windows and stare, and sometimes we wonder what's happening out there. Is there something I'm missing, something we ought to see? that I have written myself. I'm in the last chapter, not sure what's in store, but I'm betting it ends with a knock on the door. One flame, many candles, one sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love, so many hearts. One more time. One flame, many candles, one sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love, so many hearts.
Betty tells the time when she was a student in Harvard Divinity School, trying to sort out all the conflicting claims about the divine among the world's many faith traditions. I just want to love God, she said. And she found the choices of which God overwhelming and confusing. She was filled with questions. Questions I think many folks wrestle with at this time, when so many people feel less attached to religious institutions, but still seek to understand what a sense of divinity might mean in their lives. Which God? The Christian God, depending on who you spoke to, was angry and vengeful, or compassionate and forgiving? Who was right?
In Islam, the divine is most often called Allah, and Muhammad is a messenger of Allah. And this is a faith that values prayer, caring for those in need, and submitting to the divine will.
Jewish people focus on one God who cares for God's people, and there's a calling to repair the world. Three faiths, three different takes on the divine. Could there be more than one God? Or could the many conceptions of God all lead to one divine presence?
What about Buddhism? Founded by Siddhartha Gautama, who walked away from a wealthy inheritance to find enlightenment within. Buddhism does not have a divine being as such, but emphasizes teachings about the impermanence of life, compassion for others, and the liberation of each person. Teachings that are similar to a lot of faith traditions.
Or Hinduism, which is formed from diverse traditions and embraces many manifestations of one divinity called Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, the ultimate reality, and those manifestations are often called gods. Hinduism is often called the oldest living major religion and has a rich tradition of spiritual practices.
And what about the Sikhs, who focus on the oneness of God and all humanity? Or the nature religions that connect us to the richness of the world around us? The Eastern religions, like Taoism, Shinto, and Confucianism, which have built deep philosophical and ethical systems that teach love and respect for others and for the traditions of family and culture. And there are the modern faith traditions like the Church of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, or the Baha'i.
Betty said that gradually she began to realize that God lives in a land beyond language, in a land beyond limits, that God is far larger than our little imaginations can take us. Together we get glimpses of the divine, but never the totality. No one has an exclusive claim on God, and at their best, the world's faith connects us to that same ultimate reality, the reality of compassion and caring, the reality of love.
The next song is a medley, and the first song in the medley was written by Leslie Duncan, and it's called Love Song, appropriate for tonight. However, I have changed some of the lyrics to better reflect what we're speaking about. The middle song is one that I wrote based on a meditation prayer that I was taught when I was learning to meditate. And what's interesting about it is that I studied meditation with both a Zen Buddhist and a Franciscan monk. However, they both used this prayer in their meditations. to say may well be simple, but they're true. They came to teach us love, but now it's up to me and you. Love is the opening door. Love is what they came here for. No one could offer you more. Do you know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen? Breathe in, and as you exhale, fill this room with hope. Breathe in, and as you exhale, fill this land with peace. Breathe in, and as you exhale, fill this world with love. Love is the antidote to all the evil in this land. So open up your heart and you'll begin to understand. Love is the key we must turn. Love is the flame we must burn. Love is the lesson we must learn. Do you know what I mean? Have your eyes really seen?
Valerie Carr is one of the vibrant voices of our time advocating for the kind of love we're talking about tonight. She calls it revolutionary love. Valerie is from the Sikh tradition, and she tells the story of its first teacher, Guru Nanak, who lived in India from the mid-1400s to the mid-1500s. He was troubled by the violence he saw around him, violence between Hindus and Muslims, tensions that continue to this day. Valerie tells the story of Guru Nanak going to a river for 3 days and returning with a vision of oneness called Ik Ankar, one supreme reality, the oneness of all humanity. I see no stranger, he said. I see no enemy. Love enabled him to see with new eyes just what Michael was just singing about. In her book, See No Stranger, a memoir and a manifesto of revolutionary love, Valerie writes, "The call to love beyond our own flesh and blood is ancient. It echoes down to us on the lips of indigenous leaders, spiritual teachers, and social reformers through the centuries." Valerie goes on, Guru Nanak called us to see no stranger, Buddha to practice unending compassion, Abraham to open our tent to all, Jesus to love our neighbors, Muhammad to take in the orphan, the female Hindu poet Marabi to love without limit. They all expanded the circle of who counts as one of us, and therefore who is worthy of care and concern. Noel Paul Stookey used that theme of revolutionary love in a song he wrote called Revolution One by One. Here he is singing with some of the images that help carry that message.
I know we the total stranger, don't matter by one. Now the secret of this movement I'm about to share with you. You just pick somebody that you don't know, that's all you have to do. You don't need no other weapon than that smile upon your face. Just say hello, let them know. We're all part of the human race, and if you should encounter, as I'm sure you will, some disbelieving cynic who is disbelieving still, we're gonna open all his windows, we're gonna unlock every door, we're gonna sweep out every corner, we're gonna mop up every floor till he goes a-dancing in the jaw of the dragon, sleeping in the lion's den, screaming in the arms of angels. Yeah, and he falls in love again. Woo! Totally disarm the enemy before the fighting starts. Hey, we're gonna laugh in the face of evil, that misdirected fool. We're gonna start a revolution. Yeah, we're gonna win it, me and you. But we're a raggle-jaggle army, got no uniform or guns. Still been caught by coincidence, so maybe we're the ones to take this revolution to the street. And smiling every solitary person underneath. We're gonna wave at total strangers, no matter where they're from. I'm gonna start a revolution. Yeah, come on. We're gonna win it one by
And then there is Black Elk. Black Elk was a holy man and a mystic of the Oglala Lakota tribe in North America. And he lived for about 88 years, from 1863 to 1950. And he served as a bridge between the religious ceremonies of his people and the Christians that he worshiped with. His grandson put it this way: he was equally at home praying with his pipe as with his rosary. And so in the book, Black Elk Speaks, he says this: "Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw, and the shape of all shapes, as they must live together as one being. And I saw the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops, that made one circle as wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy." So after reading his book and some of those thoughts of his vision, it inspired this song. And I definitely want you all to sing along on this. I wrote it so that the chorus is very easy, hopefully memorable. And it goes, I'll teach you a line at a time. It goes like this: "Hoops within hoops, great circle of love." Try that for me. "Hoops within hoops, great circle of love. Bring all hoops together, combine them with love. Bring all hoops together, bind them with love." He climbed the great mountain, and what did he see? He climbed the great mountain, and what did he see? A circle of love connects you to me. A circle of love connects you to me.
of love, bring all hoops together and bind them with love. He climbed the great mountain, and what did he see? A circle of love connects you to me.
Nice. Black Elk was holy and Black Elk was wise. He led the Lakota, great northern tribe. He once had a vision so real and so true, how a circle of love connects me to you. Hoops within hoops,
Great circle of love, bring all hoops together and bind them with love. He climbed the great mountain, and what did he see? A circle of love connects you to me.
in the center where stillness and motion are one, a spirit tree grows, shines like the sun, with branches outreaching so wide and so tall. One mother, one father, to shelter us all. Hoops within hoops,
Great circle of love, bring all hoops together and bind them with love. He climbed the great mountain, and what did he see? A circle of love connects you to me.
a circle of love.
We keep talking about love tonight because it's so central to our faith, all the faiths, and the ethical traditions of our world. Notice the similarity in these themes across time and faith. Let's start with the ancient religion of Hinduism. Do not do to others what would cause pain if done to you.
Or this from Buddhism. A state that is not pleasing or delightful to me, how could I inflict that upon another?
From Confucianism, these words: what you do not wish for yourself, do not do to others.
From Taoism, regard your neighbor's gain as your gain, and your neighbor's loss as your loss.
In Judaism, the book of Leviticus in the Torah says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. And then in the Talmud, that ancient book of Jewish law, there is this from the wise teacher Hillel: that which is hateful to you, do not do to your fellow. This is the whole Torah, and the rest is commentary. Go and learn it.
For Christians, the words of Jesus in the Sermon on the Mount, as contained in the Gospel according to Matthew, has a familiar ring. In everything, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. For this is the law and the prophets.
In Islam, from one of the hadiths, the sayings of Muhammad, there is this account of him telling someone seeking the way to heaven: as you would have people do to you, you do to them. What you dislike to be done to you, don't do to them. And on they go. There are versions in Sikhism and Wicca, in Baha'i, and in African religions. It's a central ethical principle in humanism. So, can we not all come together with this as a starting place?
So after reading through all of these golden rules, and actually we found some others, and it becoming so clear that they were all basically saying the same thing, and I thought, what a wonderful world it would be if everybody followed their golden rule. And it inspired this song. You'll notice that in the chorus of this song, I changed the name of God to some other names. There's more than I could fit into one song. But this one's called Golden Rule. Let's start here and let's start now. The golden rule will show us how to all be sisters and brothers too, if we all live humbly by the golden rule. The rule is simple and the rule is clear. Let all to a better world. And we all live humbly by the golden rule. Come take my hand and I'll take yours. We'll live in peace with no more wars. It will come true if you believe, and we all live humbly by the golden rule. The rule is simple and the rule is clear. Let Yahweh's children have ears to hear. We're on a pathway to a better world. When we all live humbly by the golden rule. Let's do our best to understand the different faiths of every land. Give love a chance to heal our wounds, and all live humbly by the golden rule. The rule is simple and the rule is clear. Let Allah's children have ears to hear. We're on a pathway to a better world. When we all live humbly by the golden rule. When we all live humbly by the golden rule.
When Ibu Patel was a young man, he had a chance to meet the Dalai Lama. And I think his experience is useful to help us realize that to respect and honor other people's faith traditions does not mean we have to give up our own. Here's how he tells the story in his book, Acts of Faith. Ibu grew up the son of Indian parents in a Chicago suburb. He was raised as a Muslim, spent time as a college student working at a Catholic worker house in Champaign, Illinois, explored Buddhism, was best friends with a Jewish man named Kevin. The two of them traveled to India and immersed themselves in the rich culture and pluralistic religious scene of that nation. And as you do when you go to India, they had a chance to meet the Dalai Lama. Like Ibu, Kevin had studied Buddhism, but was then reconnecting with his Jewish roots. The Dalai Lama said to him, "Judaism and Buddhism are very much alike. You should learn more about both and become a better Jew." And then the Dalai Lama turned to Ibu, and Ibu was getting nervous. He really had no particular religious identity at that point, although he was seeking one. How could he tell the Dalai Lama that he was a failure at trying Buddhism? He could not meditate the way he thought he should. "You are a Muslim," the Dalai Lama said to Ibu, having been clued in ahead of time. Ibu swallowed hard. "Yes," he said, as the Dalai Lama giggled at Ibu's discomfort. "Islam is a very good religion," the Dalai Lama said. "Buddhists and Muslims lived in peace in Tibet for many centuries." And they talked a while longer, and then the Dalai Lama said this to Kevin and to Ibu. "Religions must dialogue, but even more, they must come together to serve others. Service is the most important, and common values. Finding common values between different religions. And as you study the other religions, you must learn more about your own and believe more in your own." The organization that Ibu founded, Interfaith America, formerly known as the Interfaith Youth Corps, is built on those principles. Learning while serving together, respecting each other as you delve deeper into your own tradition. Here are a few words from Ibu offering an inspiring vision of what an Interfaith America can look like.
We have before us a momentous opportunity to create the world's first truly interfaith nation. We need to build American Medina, a city on a hill made holy by the wideness of its welcome, the strength of its bonds. Look at it shining. The Catholic university where Muslim immigrants learn, the Jewish hospital where Hindu babies are born. The eyes of the world are upon you. We need to build a Sangha whose chants of loving kindness change the climate, bridge divides and bind hearts. We need to build the beloved community where we see each other, the Baptists and Mormons who farm fields and fight fires together, the witnesses who watch over the whole block. We need to build the new Jerusalem, tents for angels to dwell, tabernacles for the tribes, 12,000, 12 million. They will not cease to be diverse. They come from across the earth, seeking the sacredness of knowing one another. Every refugee a pilgrim, every stranger a friend, until we are a nation. This interfaith America, pluralist Rashtra, diverse democracy, achieving our country, where our hopes are prophecies, where we offer Longar to our friends and our enemies, where we do not wait for sickness to pray for one another's health, where we defeat the things we do not love by building the things we do. We need to build.
Reverend Dr. Otis Moss III is pastor at Trinity United Church of Christ in Chicago, and he uses jazz as a metaphor for the richness that we find in diversity, whether it is a diversity of cultures or a diversity of faith traditions. Each instrument in a jazz performance brings a different perspective. Each one gets space for a solo, but together they create a vibrant sound. As Moss said, the bass never tells the drum, you gotta sound like me. The bass says, I have my own unique perspective, and the sound that I bring to the table is something that contributes to the entire world, and we work on this together. What comes forth is a blend that highlights each instrument, yet offers a variety of harmonies. We're talking mostly tonight about religion, about beliefs that too often divide, but that could bring us together in a tapestry that illuminates what is distinctive without any one thread dominating another. We know that if we start feeling superior to people who are different from us, we begin to go down that path of division. So we all need to approach this with a sense of humility. Betty Stookey tells a wonderful story about learning that kind of cultural humility, which is a vital part of what we need in our lives if we're going to let love rule. Betty's story comes from a time when she was chaplain at Northfield Mount Herman School in northwestern Massachusetts, a co-ed prep school that describes itself as a secular school that affirms religious diversity. There were about 9 different spiritual life groups on campus, but numerous Muslim students on campus refused to come to the monthly interfaith service. They were concerned about blending their faith with other religions. So Betty began using the term multi-faith. And then, one year over the winter, a Muslim student, we'll call him Assad, was killed in a car accident in Saudi Arabia. He was a very popular student, so there was much grief. Let's have Betty pick up the story from here.
And so when the school came back after the winter break, I gathered the Muslims together to see if we could come up with some good way to honor him, to have some kind of memorial service. Now, I had done lots of memorial services, and I knew the right way, the only way, no other way, to do this service. It was clear. We would have candles, flowers, readings, music. It was obvious that was the way to do a memorial service. Well, they had other ideas. First of all, the family of the deceased does not necessarily attend the service. Readings are only from the Hadith and the Quran, and only a Muslim may speak. Music is not generally played, and flowers were irrelevant. So the Muslim students said, no service. It's not what was done in our country. We aren't interested. We don't want it. No. I said to them, but Assad was a beloved member of this school community, and this is what we need to do to honor him. So back and forth we went, with very little progress being made on either side, and it was getting closer to be time to have the service for Assad or to not have the service for Assad. And we were beginning to talk more about whose faith traditions were right and whose were wrong instead of Assad. So, being the supposed grown-up of the group, I finally let go of my right way to do it, and I said, okay, no flowers, no music, no candles, no prayers. Now can we have a service for Assad? Finally, they agreed, but said they would not attend. They also agreed to music and candles, but only if we put them at the end of the service, because they wanted to video the service and send it to Assad's parents, and if that was at the end, they could just cut it out. So the day of the service arrived, and everyone from the school came, including many students from other schools that had known Assad. And a few minutes before we began, much to my astonishment, in walked our Muslim students. They not only attended, but they participated. Assad's roommate came up with his guitar and he played a beautiful song that he had written for Assad. And Assad's friends came up and they stood shoulder to shoulder in front of the microphone, and each one stepped forward and said something about his relationship with Assad. One of them read from the Quran in Arabic, and they all lit a candle at the end of the service. So the video was sent to the family intact, and I gave thanks that we had been able to get over our obstinacy and our fear and our stubbornness to see the validity in somebody else's religious practices. It was a beautiful and poignant service, and we all learned much about respect and understanding.
So after listening to Betty's story, and it's obvious that they were not celebrating the death of this young man. They were celebrating his life and the love that they shared. And that inspired this song. Sorry, but when I wrote this, I wrote it in tune. Close enough for folk music, right? Celebrate love with us, celebrate life, celebrate the joys we shared, the struggle and the strife, honoring our loved ones through the shadow and the light. Celebrate love with us, celebrate life. They're always with us right here in our hearts, always dear to us, always part of us. The memory sweetens each day of our lives. Each day we had was a blessing, so celebrate love with us, celebrate life, celebrate the joys we shared, the struggle and the strife, honoring our loved ones through the shadows and the light. Celebrate love with us, celebrate life. We'll conquer the sadness with memories of joy, love they shared with us, love they gave to us. The memory sweetens each day of our lives. Give thanks for the days spent together and celebrate love with us, celebrate life, celebrate the joys we shared, the struggle and the strife, honoring our loved ones through the shadow and the light. Celebrate love with us, celebrate life.
Betty's story suggested, crossing the divides that separate us is not easy, even when people of goodwill are trying to work together. It's a lot harder when goodwill is in short supply. We know the way some people use religions to divide us from one another. We know the trails of bloodshed across the centuries. We know how hate tries to overcome love. We know when we face someone we see as an enemy, someone we think wants to hurt us, it's hard to reach back to that common thread of love and let love conquer hate. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. knew how hard that was for himself and for the people who looked to him for leadership. So these words remain as powerful today as when he spoke them at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama in 1957. Pastor and Judge Everett Mitchell from Madison will read them for us.
Another way that you love your enemy is this. When the opportunity presents itself for you to defeat your enemy, that is a time which you must not do it. There will come a time in many instances when the person who hates you the most, the person who has misused you the most, the person who has gossiped about you the most, the person who has spread false rumors about you the most, there will come a time when you will have an opportunity to defeat that person. It might be in terms of a recommendation for a job. It might be in terms of helping that person to make some move in life. That's the time you must do it. Help them, not defeat them. That is the meaning of love. In the final analysis, love is not the sentimental something that we talk about. It is not merely an emotional something. Love is creative, understanding goodwill for all men. It is a refusal to defeat any individual. When you rise to the level of love, of its great beauty and power, you seek only to defeat evil systems. Individuals who happen to be caught up in that system, you love, but you seek to defeat the system.
One place where conflicts over land and power get wrapped up in the robes of religion is the land of Israel and Palestine. The three faiths that descended from Abraham have spent centuries battling over this relatively small piece of real estate, a land only as big as the state of New Jersey in our nation. But within the traditions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, there are also deep wells where they can find common ground. Remember those creation stories that we share? Muslim, Jew, and Christian agree that God, in God's many names, the most holy, the eternal, Allah, Yahweh, Adonai, God is one. Muslim, Jew, and Christian adhere to many of the same teachings, yet even believing many of the same things, they have been and they still are in violent opposition. But listen now to their prayers. Here are the similarities in what they're asking for. First, Rabbi Bonnie Margulis, Executive Director of Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, which hosted a sacred sites program where people had a chance to visit and explore different faith traditions. This prayer for our human family comes from the prayer book of Reformed Judaism.
Grant peace to our world, goodness and blessing, mercy and compassion, life and love. Inspire us to banish forever hatred, war, and bloodshed. Help us to establish forever one human family, doing your will in love and peace. O God of peace, bless us with peace.
Then Nasrul Haley, a Muslim woman who grew up in Somalia and came to Madison 33 years ago, now represents part of Madison on the Common Council and has her own consulting business called Empathy for Equity. This prayer is based on what is called Surah Al-Hujurat, the 49th chapter and 13th verse of the Quran. She will read it first in Arabic and then in English.
يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. O mankind, we created you from a single pair of male and a female, and made you into nations and tribes, that you may know each other, not that you may despise each other. Verily, the most honored of you in the sight of Allah is he who is the most righteous of you, and Allah has full knowledge and is well acquainted with all things.
Finally, Paul Brandeis Rauschenbusch. Paul grew up in Madison, now lives in New York City, where he was an executive with the Interfaith America Project, organization started by Evo Patel. This prayer was written by his great-great-grandfather, Walter Rauschenbusch, who was a minister in New York City and one of the architects of what was called the social gospel movement at the beginning of the last century.
A Christian prayer for peace. O God, grant us a vision of this city, fair as it may be, a city of justice where none shall prey upon the other, a city of plenty where vice and poverty shall cease to fester, a city of brotherhood where success is founded on service and honor is given to nobleness alone, a city of peace where order shall not rest on force, but on the love of all for each and all. Walter Rauschenbusch.
So did you see how similar those three prayers were? That they're all praying, basically, for the same thing, yet Muslim, Jew, and Christian have been at odds and deep conflict with each other for years. It seems that many people have lost the core of their religion, which is love. We heard from the Muslim poet Rumi when we first started out tonight, and I had used his poem and added some music to it. Here are some more words from Rumi. Religions are like one single being. If you refuse one of them, you refuse all of them. In fact, there is only one light that appears through many different windows and which reaches us through the person of different teachers. All these lights stream from the same sun. So can we help create a world where we can find common ground in our faith traditions instead of using them as wedges to divide or tools to hurt? So Noel wrote a song, Peace in the Valley. So can we find peace in the valley? I'm going to tune for 1 second. Just give me. This one he definitely wanted you to learn the chorus to. So I'll teach it to you. Little phrase at a time. Peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours. Let's try it. Peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours. Well, there's a pigeon of peace in my backyard. He's the wrong kind of bird, but he tries so hard. One day I told him it should have been a dove. He cocked his head and looked at me with love. And he said, peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. You better tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye. You better pull the log out of yours. Well, I remember the day the painted lady in town, she came to church to lay her burden down. The preacher turned his back, the room was filled. The words she spoke, I remember them still. She said, peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours. in a pastel suit with an alligator Bible to match his boots. You might not like his style too much, but if he could reach a soul you could never touch, you gotta say, peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours. Oh yeah, peace in the valley, peace on the mountain and shore. Before you tell a man he's got a splinter in his eye, you better pull the log out of yours.
Of course, even within religions, there can be sharp divisions. We have trouble remembering the logs in our own eyes, and we're surely seeing that within Christianity in the United States these days. But the same principles of compassion and love ought to be our touchstones. Barbara Ron Taylor wrote a wonderful book in 2019 called Holy Envy, Finding God in the Faith of Others, where she described leading her college students and herself through an exploration of some of the world's religions. But she offered this insight into dealing with people who share her own tradition. When other Christians threaten or disappoint me, I work as hard to see God in them as in people of other or no faiths. It helps to remember that these are the same Christians whom I threaten and disappoint in equal measure. The only clear line I draw these days is this: when my religion tries to come between me and my neighbor, I'll choose my neighbor. Jesus never commanded me to love my religion. So we're left with two prayers from two people in different centuries, different faith traditions, dealing with different situations. Yet both prayers bring us to that place where we can cross the divides that separate us, share our stories, and seek common ground. The first one comes from Thich Nhat Hanh, a contemporary Buddhist voice. He was a voice for peace during the war in his native Vietnam and has taught people all over the world a way of seeing life that can bring people together. This passage, attributed to Thich Nhat Hanh, is read by Celeste Robbins, a Jewish woman from Madison who has studied under this Buddhist teacher.
Let us be truly with each other. Let us be aware of the source of being common to us all and to all living beings. Evoking the presence of great compassion, let us fill our hearts with our own compassion towards ourselves and toward all living beings. Let us pray that all living beings realize that they are all siblings, all nourished from the same source of life. Let us pray that we ourselves cease to be the cause of suffering to each other. Let us live in a way which will not deprive other living beings of air, water, food, shelter, or the chance to live. With humility, with awareness of the existence of life and of the sufferings that are going on around us, let us pray for the establishment of peace in our hearts and on earth.
The second prayer is in the spirit of Francis of Assisi, a 13th century Italian Christian. Among the many things he's known for is crossing the violent divide between the Christians and Muslims of his time. The words, I imagine, are familiar to many. Reverend Julia Berkey, pastor at Orchard Ridge United Church of Christ in Madison, will read them as we think about how they resonate with all that we have heard tonight.
Lord, make us instruments of your peace. Where there is hatred, let us sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that we may not so much seek to be consoled, but to console. to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying to self that we are born into eternal life.
The wording of these prayers are different, but the meaning is the same. We are to love, help, pardon, guide, protect, and offer peace. We're left then with a question authors Rachel Held Evans and Matthew Paul Turner posed in a beautiful children's book that came out recently, What is God Like? As they write at the end, this is a question that people all over the world wrestle with, and it's been answered in many different ways. Keep searching, they write. Keep wondering. Keep learning about God, but whenever you aren't sure what God is like, think about what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel brave, what makes you feel loved. That's what God is like. We hope that as we all leave here tonight, you'll go out with the spirit of the words and the music that we've shared. We hope you'll apply some of the ideals of openness and cultural humility, not only to the many faith traditions of our world, but also to the many racial and ethnic and gender divisions we encounter around us. And we hope you'll consider taking another step or two on your journey. Could you find a way to learn just a bit more about a faith tradition other than your own? Could you devote some time to going a bit deeper into your own beliefs? Could you perhaps find others who would share that journey with you? When you came in, you got a handout with a few ways that you might do that. We'd appreciate any ideas you might want to offer to our list. And if you know of others who might enjoy this presentation, please put them in touch with us. And we'll be around for a while to chat afterwards if you like. For now, let's just hear a bit of music and share a prayer as we bring this time to a close.
Flame, many candles, one sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love, many hearts, one world, many forests, one forest, many trees, one tree, many branches, one branch, many leaves, one life, many dreamers, one death, many tears, one word, many meanings, one hope, many years, one flame, many candles, one sky, many stars, one sea, many rivers, one love, many hearts.
Would you please join me in a spirit of prayer with these words gathered by Betty Stookey. Source of love, we come to you today with hope. Help us to learn to honor our differences while finding a language in which to speak of them together. Give us the strength to question our own traditions and the grace to respect the beliefs of others. May we come to honor, even in those we fear, the love that lives in us all. Show us how to speak to the best in our neighbors and attend to the worst in ourselves. May we soon see the day when this world will indeed be a place of peace for everyone. That day begins here, now, with us. So go in peace, love one another, and thanks so much for being with us tonight. That's it. Good to have you all here. Thanks so much for being here. Hi, good to see you. Thanks for coming over. Yeah.
So I'm Becky.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm Susie. I go to UCC as well.
And Orchard Ridge. Yeah. Good. Yeah. Glad you were here. Good. Yeah. Good.